I can just get people to get comfortable and pull in their seats. I think we're about ready to get started. First of all, I'd love to welcome all of you to Ann Arbor. I'm Rebecca Cunningham. I'm director of the Injury Center here, and I am just thrilled to welcome you to the town. After many months of planning, we are here at last. This joint conference of MIPA and the U of M Injury Center started sometime last year when the two groups decided to combine our resources and to create an event with much greater reach than either of us could achieve alone. Our many thanks to the MIPA leadership for working closely with us here in Ann Arbor. The collaboration has really just been a fabulous experience, has allowed us to be better connected, and which is what this conference really is all about. Our theme of preventing injury from research to practice to people, and we are delighted to have a sold-out conference. We unfortunately, which broke my heart, had to put people on a wait list because we simply were over capacity with a mix of practitioners and researchers. We do have overflow rooms during the day, but hopefully we can stay together as much as possible to really increase our connections. Our goal was to bring these two important groups together to build communication, share ideas, and build new collaborations. And we hope we will find lots of opportunities to do that over the next 2 days. I'd like just to take a minute to acknowledge a few people who are here today and thank them for their support, both financial and programmatic, for this event. First of all, Dr. Gary Smith, the founder of MIPA and the director of the Center for Injury Research and Policy at Nationwide Children's Hospital. His vision to establish the regional organization for injury prevention helped lead this event and other summits that have been sponsored in the past. Dr. Tim Corbin from the Injury Research Center at the Medical College of Wisconsin and the current president of MIPA, and Mark Kindy, the program director for the Injury and Violence Program at the Minnesota Department of Public Health. We're also delighted to welcome a few members of the broader injury community. Dr. Grant Baldwin, director of the Division of Unintentional Injury Prevention at the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control at the CDC, and I might add, a graduate of the University of Michigan School of Public Health. And Jade Lung, the Chief of Division of Injury Prevention, Center for Injury and Sexual Assault Prevention at the Maryland Department of Health, and the representative of our CDC regional network leader. And closer to home, I'd also like to introduce and thank our Associate Director of our Injury Center, Dr. Mark Zimmerman, who also serves as the director of two other CDC-funded centers, which we can all connect better with, the Prevention Research Center of Michigan and the Michigan Youth Violence Prevention Center. And finally, we're glad that you are here today because these 2 days are a great opportunity for us all to work together to prevent injury. Before we begin, a few logistic issues to cover. Our sessions today are all on this floor. Lunch will be served outside these doors today, and we will move into the Great Lakes rooms to eat and talk and share ideas. Our formal poster session takes place this afternoon at 3:45, and we hope you can stay. We are overwhelmed with submissions, and these projects represented are exciting and creative, and we don't want to miss a chance to hear about any of them. If you need anything while you're here or have questions, please talk to any of the Injury Center staff. You'll notice them wearing pink corsages of their choosing, and Tina. We also want to thank Tina and Wendy for their amazing planning and coordination of this event. Restrooms are around the corner near the registration desk. Our days are full. We ask for your help ensuring that we start and end sessions on time. During your time here, also, we ask that you take a few minutes to fill out our conversation bubble, which many of you have noticed on the wall. We have pink stickies. You'll receive a pink sticky pad, and as you have new ideas, fruitful conversations, or think of some opportunity, write a quick note and stick it to our big thought bubble. And the graphic will build over the next day or so and throughout our time together and will be representative of the valuable communication taking place this week. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce a fabulous supporter of the University of Michigan Injury Center, Dr. James Wilcroft, a dean at the University of Michigan Medical School and a Lyle Roll Professor of Medicine, as well as a professor of internal medicine and medical education. Dr. Wilcroft, who earned his MD from the University of Minnesota, is an internationally recognized medical director. He currently serves on the Liaison Committee for Medical Education Board. His interests in medical education have resulted in numerous presentations, and he's a highly sought-after speaker and lecturer. We have certainly benefited greatly from his leadership here at the University of Michigan, which is one of the most highly rated medical education programs in the country. Dr. Wilcroft and the medical school have provided support to the Injury Center here as we ramped up to become a CDC center, and that support continues today. We are honored and delighted to have him join us for this event. Dr. Wilcroft.
Thank you, Dr. Cunningham, and I want to add my welcome to all of you. It's really a wonderful turnout. I'm told we have people not only from Michigan, but also from Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and as far away as Sao Paulo, Brazil. And so it's really not just a regional, but an international conference that you're part of today. I think this is a very propitious title, Preventing Injury from Research to Practice to People. Here at Michigan, simply because of our geographic location, we've had a long-standing interest in transportation-related injuries. I'm sure all of you know the statistics about injury as being the leading cause of death in young people, actually up into middle age. And motor vehicle accidents is a major, major contributor to that. But as transportation has become safer, it doesn't mean that the need to prevent injury has diminished. All of us are very aware here in Michigan, and I'm sure in the communities where you come from, of the impact of violence on our citizenry and the tremendous need to really take data and research to data to inform policy and practice on how we do violence prevention and how we really intervene in communities to prevent injury related to violence. And there are many new issues that continually arise that I trust will be part of your focus over the next 2 days. Prescription, non-prescription drug abuse, all sorts of different issues around economic and poverty that is really plaguing major sections of our citizenry. It's also a very propitious time that you come together in this collaborative conference. I think our society is asking more of the health delivery and public health sector than we have given over the last several decades. They are asking us to come together in a collaborative way to address what seem to be too frequently intractable problems. We're on the eve of a whole new healthcare delivery system, potentially, with the Affordable Care Act. And what are the implications for injury and injury prevention? Coming around these issues, I think, is something that is a worthy calling for a group such as this. So I trust that you will use this time not only to attend the sessions, but to develop relationships, hopefully to renew friendships and also develop new ones that will lead to even greater collaborations among the different entities that are represented here. Hopefully, this will be a wonderful 2 days of intellectual stimulation, networking that will lead to tremendous outcomes. So I welcome all of you. I trust that the sun will shine here in Ann Arbor because the campus is beautiful in the fall. Right now it's pretty gloomy, but hopefully by this afternoon it'll be a little better. I wish you a very successful conference and welcome.
Dean Rosecroft. For our keynote address, we looked for someone who could help us learn practical ways of sharing information with the public that could really help prevent injury. Luckily, Gary Smith was at the ready with a great recommendation. Our keynote speaker today is an expert in public health communication, especially in the new and exploding area of social media. Nedra Weinreich, president and founder of Weinreich Communications, helps nonprofit and public agencies create positive images of health and social issues through the social marketing and transmedia storytelling strategies. She is author of the Hands-On Social Marketing Step-by-Step Guide to Creating Change for Good and writes the Spare Change blog. Nedra is on staff at the Entertainment Industries Council and teaches a graduate course at the UCLA School of Public Health. We are delighted that she has traveled from California to join us today for this conference. Please help me in welcoming Nedra Weinreich.
Thank you, Rebecca. Give me just a moment to pull up my slides. Okay, good morning. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really, really happy to be here because it's great to be here, but also because my career actually started with injury prevention, where I worked for a county health department in an injury prevention program, specifically coordinating a traffic safety program. And so it's wonderful to be able to circle back and be part of the injury prevention field. When I was in the injury prevention field, the mantra that we kept saying is accidents or injuries are no accident. And so I use that as my title for this because I think that similarly, effective social media is no accident. It's something that you can't just jump into and assume everything's going to work. It's more of a process that you need to really think through, and I'm going to talk to you today about what some of the strategies are you can use to be more effective as you're thinking through how to create a social media program. So when I worked in injury prevention, I remembered that there was something called the injury triangle, where you can think about the different points of intervention where you might be able to prevent an injury from happening. You can work with the person who you don't want to get injured to influence what their behaviors are. You can change the vector, the thing that's going to be doing the injuring, and you can change the environment. And so I've used this to think through a little bit, how can we use social media to influence each of these points of potential intervention to prevent injuries? And so if we want to use these for injury prevention, I was thinking through how could we apply it to each of these. So first of all, the person who we're going to be addressing, certainly we can use social media to influence their knowledge, their attitudes, hopefully ultimately their behaviors as a result. We can influence the environment that that person is operating in. So creating a social environment in which the norm is to do things that are safe and to take precautions. And then I had a harder time figuring out, okay, so how do we change the vector? How do we change things like a car or a gun or things like that to incorporate social media in a way that it's going to have an influence? And I realized really the best way to do that is by using social media to address the manufacturers, to address the policymakers, to get them to take action to actually change those things so that they are safer. So I realized that we really can use all of these different pieces in a social media program and address all of the three different pieces of that triangle. I wanted to start out with just an example of what you can do with social media around injury prevention. I'm going to show you a video that was created by Sussex Safer Roads, which is a UK traffic injury prevention program. How many of you have seen that one before? So a good number of you. And I tear up every time I see that. I just love that. So this is a video that was created, like I said, by Sussex Safer Roads in the UK. They created it very deliberately to be an online video, hoping that it would go viral. This was in 2010 that it was created. Since then, or actually in the first 5 weeks that it was posted, it got 3 million views. I just checked, and at this point it's got about 17 million views, which is pretty good. If you think about if they had created this and put it on TV, it would have been really, really expensive, first of all, to get that airtime, but they might not have even reached that many people in their small local area. But this has gone worldwide, everywhere, and people all over the world have seen it. So just to give you a quick picture of what they did to make it go viral, because it's not an easy thing to do. First of all, you have to have a really good product. It has to be something that people really want to share, which I think this really is. So what they did is before they posted it, they did a campaign to influencers in their local area and also on social media to pique their interest. So they sent out postcards, they created outdoor ads, they had a graffiti artist, or yeah, I guess it was a graffiti artist, who actually went out in conjunction with the city and covered up unsightly graffiti with their logo and their URL. And all of this directed people to their website, where until the day came when the ad was revealed, they had a countdown timer. So no one really knew exactly what was going to be happening, except that they knew something interesting, hopefully, was going to be happening. And when it came out, people were ready. They were ready to see what it was and to start sharing it. They didn't create their own Facebook page for, this was called the Embrace Life campaign. But fans loved it so much, they created their own Facebook page for them, a Facebook group. This won YouTube Ad of the Year. And on the YouTube channel, or on the posting, it got about 8,900 comments. It was covered in over 500 blogs, people talking about it. As a result of all the buzz online, it got shown on TV for free all over the world. It got a lot of PR. And so that's an example of what you can do with social media, where social media doesn't live in a world by itself. It's connected to the outside world. So the more that you're able to bring together what you do offline and what you do online, the more effective you're going to be. So I just wanted to kick off with that because I just love that campaign. Now I'd like to show this because I think this is a lot of people's perception of what Twitter is about, what social media is about, where he says, thanks to Twitter, I no longer have to hold a press conference every time I eat a sandwich. That was a drag. So Twitter is not only people talking about what they had for lunch. It's become a very, very effective way of getting information out there, meeting new people, learning things. And I'm going to talk a lot about how you can use Twitter and other social media to do that for injury prevention. So thinking about what you can do with social media, outside of just talking about what you had for lunch, I have a list of things, and for some reason they all turned out to start with the letter C. So first of all, you can communicate with each other. So if you have a message that you want to put out there, social media is great for that. It's also great for conversations. It's not just a one-way street. It's a two-way medium where you can talk to each other, talk to your fans, talk to people who might have questions. It lets you connect people who have similar interests together. Lets you collaborate and co-create things. It's also a great way to do consumer research, where you can find out what people are thinking about a particular topic. How do they talk about it? What words do they use? What are their concerns? You can use it to collect and categorize information. So we'll be talking a little bit about hashtags. I think that's a great way to do that. You can bring together collective wisdom, thinking about something like Wikipedia or other wikis that are out there. You can use it to customize your web experience. A lot of organizations use Twitter and other social media for customer service, and I'll show you some examples of that as well. So you may not think you need to do customer service, but if you're serving the public, you really do need to think in that way. And most of all, social media helps to create an online community, which is when people with a shared interest and shared goals come together and get to know each other and work together towards those goals. So in order to do all those things, you need to start off with a strategy. Too often what happens is people say, well, that organization has a Facebook page, so we better have a Facebook page. So let's create a Facebook page and start posting things to it, without first thinking through, why do you want a Facebook page? Are the people that you're trying to reach even on Facebook? What would you do with it? So I'm going to lead you through the different pieces of a strategy and how to put that together. But first, I just want you to keep in mind, social media is not about technology. Social media is really about people. It's about people talking to people on a mass scale sometimes, and sometimes just one-on-one. So it's really just about word of mouth and how you can get that word of mouth going. And it's also about thinking in different terms, not thinking in terms of campaigns, but thinking more in terms of movements, building a movement around your issue, getting the people who are passionate about it to work together to get other people involved. This is part of a manifesto from an organization called Brains on Fire, where they talk about the difference between campaigns and movements and how we need to switch that mindset. So for example, campaigns have a beginning and an end. Movements go on as long as kindred spirits are involved. Campaigns are you talking about yourself. Movements are others talking about you. Campaigns are you versus us. Movements are let's do this together. So this is the shift in thinking that we need to move to for social media, where it's not just your organization putting out information for everyone else, but it's more thinking about building something together, building something that everyone can be a part of and not just the recipient of your information. And it's really all about building that community. It's about building a community of people with similar interests who work together, who share information, who bring others into the community and can work together towards that shared goal. So continuing that roadmap analogy, there's 5 steps that you need to follow to put together a strategy. And I'm going to go through each of these one by one. But basically, it's goals and objectives, figuring out your target audience, looking at what capacity you have in your organization, looking at your tools and tactics and what makes the most sense, and then monitoring and evaluating. So starting with step 1, think through what is your goals? What are you going to program into that GPS as the ultimate destination that you want to get to? You need to know where you want to be going in order to know what kinds of messages do you want to put out there. Who are the people that you need to reach? What are the kinds of things you want to be doing on social media? And that's ultimately going to drive what you do. So think about social media not in isolation, but in how it works together with other things you may be doing in your program, whether it's mass media or other kinds of offline outreach. This is from Steve Rubel, who's a PR blogger. He talks about the magic T of marketing, where the mainstream media is really all about reach. It's that long but fairly shallow line at the top where you can reach a lot of people, but not in a lot of depth. But when you take that other line down to get more depth, that's where social media comes in, where the people who you reach through the mass media, who get excited, who get interested in what you're talking about and want to learn more, that's where they can start to really interact with your organization, look for more information, interact with other people who are interested in the same topic. You need both of these pieces, but each piece does something different in your strategy, and you need to think in those terms. So these are just some of the potential outcomes that you could think about in terms of your social media. Listening and learning is a huge thing. Even if you don't put out anything from your organization or your personal social media account, just using it to see what other people are saying and learning from the news, learning from the resources that other people are talking about is really valuable. It's also great for building relationships, getting to know other people in the field, what kinds of things they're interested in and working on, and seeing how there might be opportunities to collaborate. Building awareness of your issue. Could be that people aren't really aware of what you're trying to get out there, but if they start seeing what you're talking about and different people talking about it, that can increase awareness. It can also increase the reputation of your organization as a more responsive one, as one that cares what other people say about it and talks back and answers people's questions. So if you're, for example, a health department and you start responding to people's questions about the things that you're doing, that makes you look much more responsive and makes people feel like you really are serving them better. Now, if you can motivate the people who support you to create content, to create things that support your message or that promote your organization, that's really huge. If you can get people excited enough about what you're doing that they want to post about you or write a blog or things like that and share with their friends what you're doing, that says a lot more than if you're saying it about yourself. It's always much more effective coming from a friend or a colleague than from the organization itself. If you have a website, social media is great for increasing your page views and driving people to your website to get more information. So that's another great way to use social media. You can also use social media to change people's perceptions of social norms. So if all of a sudden people's friends are talking about, getting their flu shots or wearing their bike helmet or whatever it is, when they see other people that they know and respect talking about these things, they're more likely to do it as well. And social media is a great way to get that out there. Social support also for people who might be living with a particular illness or who are experiencing something that they want to share with other people and find out, how did you deal with this challenge, or what are you doing right now? To talk to each other and see how what tips people might have, and even just to connect with other people who have the same thing so that they don't feel as alone. And finally, ultimately, what we really want people to do is to take some kind of action. And social media is also good at giving reminders for doing things, directing people to places where they can start that process as well. So as you're thinking about what your particular goals and objectives are with your social media program, this is where you can get some ideas for what might be appropriate. And of course, everything that you do on your social media side needs to fit under your main communication strategy, which hopefully your organization has, kind of an overall communication marketing strategy, so that it's not happening in isolation. Okay, step 2 is figuring out who exactly is it that you want to be reaching. There's a lot of people out there, and a lot of people may not be online that you want to reach, or maybe they tend to congregate on a particular social network, or maybe they're spread across a lot of different ones. Maybe they only read what other people have created, or maybe they would be motivated to create something of their own. So you really need to get to know who is it really that you want to reach, which goes back to your goals and objectives. Who are those people who are going to help you reach those goals and objectives? And then you need to find out as much as you can about those people so that you know where to reach them and how they're going to be most motivated. You don't have the excuse anymore that if you're serving an older population that they're not online, because they definitely are. Of the people who use social network sites, 43% of them are 65 and older. So it's not the majority, but there's still a substantial number out there. And if you're trying to reach 18 to 29-year-olds, that's 89% of them that are on social network sites. So it's really a good place to be reaching people. So age is not necessarily the best way to break up your demographics. You need to think about who are they, where are they spending their time. And here's one way that you can think it through. This is from Beth Cantor, who's a nonprofit marketing blogger. And she's looked at kind of the psychographics of social media use. So not just in terms of what they are, where they are, but what they do when they're online. So there's different kinds of people who participate online in different ways. So there's the happy bystanders who basically just read what everyone else has created and are happy to do that. And that really is usually the majority of people who are out there. If you're a nonprofit, you may be thinking about donors, getting people to that next step to donate money. A lot of you probably are not at that point. But then you can go on to asking people to share your content, because there are people who are the spreaders who may not do much more than read and share it with their friends, but that's a big thing. Then there may be the evangelists. Those are the people who are really excited about your content, who feel very passionately about it. And those are the people that you can ask to reach out to their friends and get them involved. Not just sharing your content, but getting them involved in what you're doing. And finally, the highest level here, which obviously is probably the smallest percentage of people, is the instigators. These are the people who are so passionate about the topic or about your organization that they create content. They might create a video talking about why your issue is important to them. They might change their Facebook status to something that you offer them to get their friends and family involved. So you need to think about, where does your population, the people who you're trying to reach, where do they fall along this line? And that should affect what you ask them to do. The next step is looking at what your organizational capacity is. And that's really about what kind of time and manpower or person power do you have to put into social media? Do you have the expertise on your staff currently to be doing anything in social media? And so based on those first two steps, what your goals are, who your audience is, you need to think through, what kind of staff can I dedicate to this? It's easy to say, well, social media is free, right? It's free like a free puppy is free. It requires a lot of care and feeding, and it's not just a one-time thing where you set up your account and then you're done. So you really need to think about, what can you commit to in terms of your social media staff time? Do you have people who already know how to use Twitter or Facebook or whatever it is that you decide you want to use? And can you commit to having them online and interacting as part of their daily routine? Because that's really what it takes. Once you create that account, the expectation becomes that you will actually feed it and put the information out there and interact when people write to you. If they send you a note on Twitter or post a comment on your Facebook page, their expectation is that you're there and you're listening and that you'll respond. So you need to make sure you're committed to actually doing that. This is the step where people usually jump to. Which tools and tactics are you going to use? This is where people say, okay, we're going to use Twitter, without having thought through all of those three previous steps, which, as you can see, is really crucial to be able to figure out which of these make sense based on your goals and objectives, who your target audience is, and what your capacity is to actually carry it out. So, like I said, you need to know where your audience spends their time. And I'm going to give you a URL at the end of the presentation that has a lot of information that you can use to see what social networks tend to draw, what kinds of people, to know which of these make the most sense. And each of these tools are things that can be used in different ways. So you can think about how you want to be using social media, and then there's a particular tool that might be best for that. So if you want to just listen to what's going on out there, see what people are saying about your issue or your organization, you can use things like Google Alerts. You can use RSS readers to gather information from blogs and news sources. Twitter is a great place to just kind of get the zeitgeist of what people are saying out there. You can have ongoing Twitter searches that are for particular keywords and just scan them every day to see what kinds of articles are coming up, see what news is happening or events are happening that you might want to be aware of. And also, I'll just mention with Twitter search, it does have a feature where you can localize it. So you can tell it to search for tweets in a particular geographic area. So if you're a local program and you don't want to see everything that's happening all over the world, and you just want to see what people are saying in your community, you can narrow it down to that. If you want to have conversations with your followers and your fans, Twitter's great, Facebook, Google+, all of those will work for that. And blogs and blog comments, there's often a lot of conversations that happen there, either within a particular blog or even across blogs. If there's people who are, if there's a community of bloggers on your topic, they may have conversations online through their blog posts talking to each other. If you want to use social media to tell your story, blogs are fantastic for that. It gives you a kind of a long form venue to be able to get into more depth. Twitter's good for quick little blips of glimpses into your day. Google+, video and photo sharing. So YouTube is great for telling stories. And things like Instagram or Vine, which are pictures or very short videos, can give little glimpses to your followers. Podcasts are another way. Pinterest is a good one as well that really is growing really quickly. So in addition to you telling your story, you also want to help your supporters tell your story. So it's not just you putting it out there, but it's other people talking about you, which is so much more powerful. So encouraging people to generate their own content through things like contests, maybe a video contest, or Instagram contest, having people take a picture of something that's relevant to your issue and post it. There's different kinds of apps and widgets that you can use where people can put your content onto their sites. If you want to generate buzz and get a lot of people talking about what you're doing, Twitter's great for that. You can also use sites like Reddit for social news where other people post the news and people vote it up or down depending on how interesting they think it is. If you have something really interesting to get out there and a lot of other people think it is too, if it gets on the front page of Reddit, there's a lot of people who are going to see that and who are going to pass that around. Tumblr and Pinterest are other ways of really getting your information out there, and it's very shareable. It's ways to get people to share it with their friends. Also, building community. That's something that's much more long-term, where we talked a little bit about movements versus campaigns. You really need to create that community in order to have a bigger impact. Because when you have important news that you really need to get out immediately, if you haven't already built up a lot of people who are following you, then you're not going to reach a lot of people. So you need to spend time really building those relationships and getting people to know and trust you so that when you do have something really important to get out there, that you can reach them immediately. You already have that built-in following and that community who's going to help you spread that information. LinkedIn is also a great one for professional kinds of information, for kind of professional to professional kind of information. Hashtags are something that are a way of bringing information together on a particular topic. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but it's really a great way of building community and helping people find each other around particular topics. And finally, collaborating and collecting information. Again, hashtags are good for that, but things like wikis, you can build a wiki around a particular topic and ask people who are in your community to contribute their particular piece of knowledge to that wiki. Social bookmarking is another one, which is things like Delicious, where you have an online bookmark that is shared with a lot of other people, and hashtags again. Okay, so step 5 is really once you're putting information out there on the different tools and using the different tactics, you want to monitor what's going on. How are people reacting? What are they saying in relation to your content? And what else is going on out there that you need to know about? So you can create what I like to call a social media dashboard, where you collect a lot of different information in one place and can track really easily what people are saying on different keywords or saying about your organization. So you can do that through an RSS feed reader. Google Reader used to be the go-to one, but there's a lot of other ones since that one's stopped working. Like Bloglines is one that I use that I really like. Google Alerts are fantastic. And if you're not already, if you don't already have Google Alerts set up for your name or your organization's name, you need to do that. You need to know what people are saying out there online about you and about your organization. So make sure that you set that up if you don't already have that. You want to monitor what's going on other blogs or in the news so that you can respond in a timely way. You can put out your own spin on it, talk about how it relates to your organization and what you're doing. Twitter and Facebook searches let you respond to people on those tools. And also, you want to track things like using Google Analytics. You want to know how are people using your website? How are they using your blog? What kind of response are you getting online on your Twitter or Facebook pages in terms of activity and engagement, so that you can see what kind of posts work, what are people responding to, and what should you be doing more of. So those were the 5 steps that you go through, but across all of those pieces, there's kind of some rules of the road that no matter what social network you're using, there are things that will help you be more successful as you go along. So it doesn't matter if it's Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or whatever it is. There's a lot of them out there. These are guidelines that can help you just make sure that your content will be more interesting and relevant and useful to get more followers and get more people paying attention to what you're doing. So first of all, how many people know who this is? Okay, so Susan Boyle. What was the big buzz about her? It was that she was so authentic. She was such a real person. People could relate to her. She was like one of them. She wasn't one of these plastic pop stars that everyone was used to. And that's what really resonated with a lot of people. And that's how we need to be on social media as well. You want to be a real person. It's okay to be a real person on social media. You don't want to talk like a press release. People don't want to have a relationship with an organization. They want to have a relationship with a person at that organization. And so the more that you can sound like a human in your social media activities, the more successful you'll be, because social media really is all about building relationships, and relations happen person to person. Now here's an example. For each of these, I'm going to show you some examples of what are out there, and they're not all injury prevention examples, but they're ones that I think are good ones. So this is an example of a group that built around Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution site. And they had this National Flavored Milk Day of Action where parents went to the schools to demand that they take out the sugary milk beverages that they were serving the kids because they weren't healthy. So the parents who were really excited about this and involved with it, they created a group for them to talk to each other about strategies that they could use, what challenges had they run up against, what successes were they having. And so this was all about parents talking to parents. And it was not a corporate site. It wasn't something that was the celebrity talking out to the masses. This was something where real parents were talking to each other in real language, and it evolved spontaneously as a way of just getting people together and figuring out how to do this right, because they all felt very strongly about this issue. So I think this is a great example of using authenticity, having real people be a part of it and make that difference. Next, sharing is a big part of social media. Sharing information and sharing of yourself also. The social currency on social media is not money, it's value. It's the time and effort and useful information that you provide to people. Now that might be in the form of interesting information that people can apply to their lives. It might be in the form of humor, things that make them laugh during the day. It might be that you have great resources that you can direct people to that are created by other organizations. Whatever it is, you need to think in terms of really, what can I share that's going to be most helpful and be something that other people are going to want to share with their friends and colleagues. This is a fun example that was created by the Diabetes Hands Foundation. It's a Facebook game called Health Seeker that they created to encourage people to take healthy actions in their lives, whether it's in their diet or exercise or other stress reduction, all kinds of different topics. And so they have these different missions that you could do, and you'd get points for reporting that you had accomplished it. And you could also challenge your friends to do these things. And so it's a very social way of either committing to a particular behavior that you want to incorporate in your life, or bringing your friends in and making it kind of a competition to see who can get the most points. But it's really a great way of thinking through how can you bring in things like competition or game elements to get people excited about the things that you want them to be doing in terms of healthy behavior. This is another interesting example. When the BP oil spill happened, someone came up with this Twitter account called BP Global PR. It was not actually BP's PR department, and put out these little satiric tweets with wry commentary on what was going on, as if it were coming from BP. And these are only a couple of really amazing tweets. So satire and parody is something that can be really effective in terms of influencing people's attitudes and getting them to take action. So this is another thing you can think about in terms of engaging people and getting them interested in what you're doing. Ultimately, the person who created this account, they made it very clear that they were not part of BP. In the bio, it was very clear. And they were able to keep it up under Twitter's rules. And at a certain point, they stopped tweeting. But while it was going on, it amassed hundreds of thousands of followers because it was really funny and it was resonating with a lot of people. Now, this is also another example of the fact that when you are in the social media realm, you don't have control over what other people are doing. There may be someone else who goes out there and pretends to be your health department, or who is saying things that are negative about your organization that you don't like. And that's something that goes with the territory. It happens. And so you need to keep in mind that this is not new. This is not just because of social media. People have always probably been saying negative things. You just didn't know it. Now you can hear what they're saying, and you can respond. You don't have control over what other people are doing, as long as they're doing it in a legal way. But what you do have control over is how you respond to it and what you put out there yourself. And so a lot of organizations say, well, we don't want to start doing social media because then people are going to take what we put out there and twist it around, and we won't have any control. You never had control. Once it was out there, you did not have control over what happened to it. So now the great thing about social media is you're really able to see what's going on out there, and you can respond. So keep that in mind. Okay, next you need to make sure that you're relevant. Because you know who your target audience is that you're trying to reach, you should then know what is going to be most relevant to their interests and their needs. So they're not necessarily going to be interested in the most recent journal article from an injury prevention journal. But they may be very interested in what can I do to keep my 8-year-old safe? Or how should I be, what kind of car should I look for if I want something that's more safe? Thinking about what, from their perspective, is going to be most useful. Make sure you look at what's coming out of your social media feed and ask yourself, is this something that I would even be interested in reading? Because so often organizations, once they put things out through social media, if it has to go through several layers of approvals and that sort of thing, once it gets out there, it's so bland and boring that no one really wants to read it anymore. So make sure that anything that's out there is relevant and interesting and something that really will engage people. So here's an example of the American Heart Association. This is from a while ago. Christy DeRosso down here works for the American Heart Association and has had a search going on Twitter for any time someone would use the word stroke. So it turns out she saw this person, Beautiful Bliss, who posted, "We think my dad has had a stroke. Great, he's 1.5 hours away, waiting for my brother to phone me back." So when she saw this get posted, within 3 minutes, she was able to respond to her and say, please get him to a hospital quickly. Great treatment if he's there within 3 hours. So this is a way of being very relevant to someone at the moment when they need that information. So if you can have an ongoing search going on that you check periodically, where for whatever keywords your program is focusing on and wants to really be known as the expert and the most helpful person out, or organization out there on that topic, you need to see what kinds of questions are coming up. What are people saying around those keywords? And where can you be helpful? Is there something that you can respond with that's going to help that person at that moment when they need it? So here's another example of that, where the CDC actually has a blog, and a couple of years ago they did a blog post on preparing for the zombie apocalypse. So they were thinking about what are the kinds of things that people are interested in? What are people going to think is relevant to them? A lot of times for a lot of people, pop culture is something that they're interested in. So they were able to tie in the idea of emergency preparedness to something that a lot of people were really interested in, which is zombies. And this blog post generated media coverage all over the world because it was so unusual for the CDC of all organizations to be writing about the zombie apocalypse. So they got millions of dollars worth in the equivalent of media coverage, and they've taken this zombie theme and kind of extended it to other things as well because it had resonated so much. So think about what kinds of things do the people you're serving care about? How can you tie your issue to that piece of information? And also keep in mind that social media is a way of two-way conversation. It's not just a place to post your press releases, to send information out, and then forget about it. I like to say that it's like buying a computer and then using it as a doorstop. You can use it that way, but it's not the most effective way to use a computer. So using social media as a way of just posting your own news and putting out your press releases is a way that you can do it. You can use it that way, but it's definitely not the most effective way. It's much more effective to use it to engage in conversations with other people. So here's a great example of an organization that's using social media for this kind of two-way conversation. The LA Fire Department, and particularly Brian Humphrey, who's the PIO there, they've really been a leader in using social media as a public agency. They have social media accounts on pretty much every social media site and are very active. So they have a blog where they talk about the latest news with the department, what some interesting incidents were that happened and how they responded to them, safety tips, things like that. And they also have two different Twitter accounts. They've got their official account, LAFD, which talks about incidents that are going on at the moment, or just reminders of different, parking restrictions because of fire hazards during certain days or things like that. But they also have this LAFD Talk Twitter account. And this is where they monitor to see anytime someone mentions LAFD on Twitter, and then they respond to them. Or they might reach out to someone on a related topic and strike up conversations. So there are constantly conversations going on, whether it's kind of customer service oriented, where someone had a bad experience with the LA Fire Department. They did something when they came and put out their fire and they broke the precious vase or whatever it was that someone's complaining about. And they really use this account as a way of reaching out and finding out more about what's going on and providing information on why they do things the way they do. And what was really interesting a couple years ago, the LAFD blog had to go on hiatus because of staffing issues. And the comments that were posted as a result of that, of people saying, but how are we going to know what our fire department's doing? We're going to miss you. And people really felt like that was their link. That was the face of the fire department to them, that blog, and they felt really connected as part of the community. So that's a great way to be using social media. Okay, another tip is find your fans. There are people out there, and I'm sure you know who a lot of them are for your particular issues, who are really, really passionate, who are out there talking about the issue to their friends, who want to be really spreading the gospel to the whole world about it. So if you can find those people and enlist them in your activities, get them to help spread information on social media for you, make them your ambassadors. That can be really powerful. Hashtags are a great way of finding those kinds of people. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what a hashtag is, it's that pound symbol that goes in front of a word or an abbreviation, usually used on Twitter, and now Facebook is starting to use them. And what it is a way of collecting all of the tweets or posts on a particular topic in one place. So for example, for this conference, we have a hashtag which is InjuryConf, in case you aren't already using it. And so that's a way for people who are interested in following what's going on in the conference. They can click on that hashtag and it gathers together all of the different tweets that someone has put out on the topic covering what's going on here. So HCSM, Healthcare and Social Media, is one you might be interested in. There was a big thing going on a while ago when the FDA was issuing their social media guidelines for pharma companies, where they collected everything under one hashtag that was going on. And there are also often either monthly or weekly Twitter chats that go on using a hashtag, where everyone who wants to participate in the conversation uses that hashtag in all of their tweets that are part of the conversation, and you can have a big community discussion on different topics. I've looked and didn't see anything specific to the injury prevention community, so maybe one of you would like to start something like that to bring together the people in this room and others outside to start talking about injury prevention topics and see how you can work together. It's a great way of finding who else is interested in that topic online and connecting with them. And once you find those fans, you want to make it really easy for them to then go out and evangelize to everyone else and tell them what you're doing and spread the word about your issue. This is something that happened just last week, which I think was really amazing. This was in the UK. So there's a store called Asda, I'm assuming is how it's pronounced, that was selling this costume for Halloween up there in the top left, the mental patient fancy dress costume, which is basically, you know, an axe murderer kind of thing. And so this guy, Dean Burnett, saw that, and so he tweeted, I work in psychiatry. Can you clarify what mental disorder this is? Never seen it before. And that tweet ended up getting over 1,200 retweets of people sharing it with their friends. And as a result of the publicity that happened here, people started posting pictures of themselves, tagging it with the hashtag mental patient, saying, this is my mental patient costume, with just a picture of themselves being normal. So here's an example here. In the 24 hours after Dean Burnett's tweet, there were over 22,000 tweets that came out that mentioned ASDA versus about 4,000 the day before. And this mental patient hashtag was used about 6,700 times in 24 hours. So it got a lot of attention very quickly, and they were able to get the store to withdraw this costume and apologize, and they're also making a big donation to some mental health organizations. So it's a great way of mobilizing people really quickly and getting people to contribute their own take on a topic, getting them to really be part of it and feel some ownership. When the result came about, I bet the people who participated in this felt like they had something to do with it. It's really powerful. Also, you want to tell your story across platforms, meaning it's great to be able to reach people on Twitter or on Facebook, but when you can tell a bigger picture story, when you can make it more of a transmedia kind of story where you have different parts of the story appearing in different places, that can be really powerful. So someone who follows you just on Twitter, it's fine if they only see that, but for those who are really interested and really want to be engaged in what you're doing, you could have kind of your day-to-day goings-on Twitter, and on Facebook you could post pictures of what's going on in your office or at your events. On Instagram you could have pictures that you post of the people that you're helping. On YouTube you could have videos that show little snippets of what you're doing. So you can do different things across different platforms and have a really powerful story that comes out of that. So Invisible People is a great example of that. This is a nonprofit in Los Angeles that I'm on the board of that started with one man named Mark Horvath, who had previously been homeless himself. He had a background in television production, and when he was able to get out of homelessness, he decided what he wanted to do was to go out on the streets and use his video skills to capture the stories of the people who were homeless and living on the streets. So he goes around, now it's all around the country, all around the world, and collects these stories where he'll go up to someone that he encounters on the street and ask if he could video them. And he asks them to tell their story, and he asks different questions, and then posts the raw video on his site, invisiblepeople.tv. And it's incredibly powerful because it's not just the videos that he posts of these people, but it's also his Twitter feed, his Facebook feed, his Tumblr feed, all the different pieces where he tells different parts of the story. And on Twitter is where I actually had first met him, and it was amazingly compelling because he's talking about how he's driving around looking for homeless encampments. He sees one, he stops, he tweets that he's going in, but he's not sure if it's going to be safe. And so every few minutes there's another tweet from him bringing you along on his journey of how he's going out and approaching people and what happened and how their stories affected him. So it's a whole nother layer to what he's doing with the videos. So it's really powerful. Okay, so through our roadmap and our GPS, we have hopefully arrived at our destination in terms of having a better idea of how to be successful with social media in terms of approaching it from a strategic process and not just jumping in and starting, but having a very clear idea of how to get from one point to another. So I have this web page where I've compiled a lot of different social media resources, as well as a link to download this PowerPoint if you would like it. And I'll read that to you just to make sure everyone gets it. So it's bit.ly, bit.ly/Nedra, Nedra, capital S for social, capital M, media. So Nedra social media with each word capitalized. So there's a lot of resources there in terms of what kinds of examples you can find on different social networks, how to identify which audiences are using which kinds of networks, and hopefully it'll be useful to you. So this is how to get in touch with me, and I encourage you to do so. And I'm not sure if we have time for questions or not, but okay, 2 questions. Does anyone have something?
For so many folks who are working in organizations that are already understaffed and feeling a little overwhelmed by how much great stuff there is, but what would you suggest for the organization that has not a full-time staff person for this as one place to start, or is that practical at all, or how do you approach this from an overstaffed place?
Yeah, that's a good question. The question for those of you who couldn't hear is, when you already don't have enough staff to carry out what you need to do, how do you add social media on top of that? And it's a big question. You need to make sure before you jump in that you're able to handle what you want to be doing. First of all, see if there's anyone on your staff who's already using Twitter, maybe in a more personal way. Maybe they'd be interested in starting to do things for your organization as well, either incorporating it into their own tweeting, their own personal stuff, or in addition to. A lot of organizations like to use interns. You have to be careful with interns because remember that your social media is basically the online face for your organization. And you want to make sure that whoever's representing your organization online knows what they're talking about. So you can either have everything that they're going to be post get approved, or make sure that the person who is going to be tweeting on your behalf has some kind of training and knows what things they can respond to themselves and what needs to be taken to the next level to make sure that they get the right answer. And I would also encourage you to start small, start very small. Don't think about having to, go to 5 different social networks. Think about one social network that might be the place that you want to start. And you can kind of lay low, spend some time just kind of getting to know what's going on that network, just listening and watching. You don't need to be posting things necessarily right away. But you can use it as a way to kind of take baby steps and hopefully be able to expand more and more what you're doing. Yes?
Can you comment on, and this may be a topic for an extra hour lecture, but can you comment on the intersection between social media and public policy and influence of policy?
So the question is, what is the intersection between social media and public policy? And I think there definitely is a big intersection. Social media can have a very powerful impact in terms of framing the debate, in terms of putting things on the agenda that might not otherwise have been looked at. If there are things that build steam through social media and a lot of people are talking about it, it's hard for the mainstream news to ignore it sometimes. A lot of times what the news, where the news gets their information is from social media. So a lot of things jump from social media to more of the mainstream news, which then has a very powerful impact. But I think the more that you can use social media to target what you're doing, if there are particular policymakers you're trying to reach, you can use social media to do that and encourage their constituents to get in touch with them. But I think really that agenda setting impact is the most powerful way to use it.
I think we're going to have to stop for questions now, but we do have other sessions devoted to this later on, and I just thank you so much